Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. As I stood there, the icy wind seemed to mock me, slicing through my worn coat like it knew just how brittle I had become inside. That door, the one that just slammed shut on my entire life, might as well have been a coffin lid. Michael, my son, stood there moments before, looking down at me like I was something he'd scraped off his shoe. "You're an embarrassment," he said, voice dripping with a disdain that cut deeper than the winter chill. "It's time you learned to take care of yourself." I remember thinking, how did we get here? This boy I raised, fought for, and bled for, is now casting me aside, as if I were nothing more than a burden. A laughable burden, no less. "You really think this will end here, Michael?" I remember asking, my voice steadier than I felt. The look he gave me then, it was as if he was looking at a stranger. "What's that supposed to mean?" His voice was sharp, a knife's edge. "Nothing," I replied, tucking those crumpled bills he threw at my feet into my pocket. "It's just interesting, is all." The words tasted like poison on my tongue, but I swallowed the bitterness. He didn't need to know that his betrayal had ignited something within me, a burning desire for reckoning. He scoffed, turning his back on me, and in that moment, I knew. The ties that bound us, fragile as they had become, were now irrevocably severed. But I also knew something he didn't. I'm not as fragile as he believed. No, the years hadn't just worn me down. They'd made me resilient, cunning even. As I walked away, the cold somehow seemed less biting. Each step felt like shedding a layer of the old me, the me that would have crumbled under the weight of such rejection. But not anymore. I had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. And gain I would, by whatever means necessary. The streets welcomed me, an embrace as cold as my newfound resolve. I had no plan, not yet, but the wheels were turning. Michael had made a grave mistake, underestimating the woman who had given him everything. But he would learn, oh how he would learn, that there's nothing more dangerous than a mother scorned, with nothing left to lose. In the shadows of those streets, amidst the whispers of the wind, I made a silent vow. This wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning of his downfall. I would rise from these ashes, and he would realize, too late, that in his quest to rid himself of a burden, he had unleashed a force to be reckoned with. And so, as the night grew darker and the cold more biting, a plan began to form. A plan for redemption, for revenge, and for a reckoning that would shake the very foundations of the comfortable life Michael had built on the ruins of my sacrifices. Navigating the streets felt like moving through a maze designed by a cruel architect, each turn a reminder of the rejection that burned hotter than the cold biting at my skin. You see, finding shelter wasn't just about escaping the chill. It was about proving to myself, to Michael, that his dismissal would not be my end. I approached countless doors, each knock a mixture of hope and dread. The responses were as cold as the air that seeped into my bones. "We're not looking for anyone," they'd say, or, "Sorry, no room here for someone like you." Each rejection was a slap, a confirmation of Michael's cruel assessment of my worth. But here's the thing about being backed into a corner. It sharpens your instincts, forces you to look at the world with eyes wide open. I began to see opportunities in places I would have never considered before, possibilities in the faces of those who, like me, had been cast aside. It was in one such unlikely place that I met Rosa, a girl with eyes too old for her young face. She, too, was searching for something, some semblance of warmth in a world that had shown her none. Our first conversation was cautious, two souls circling each other, each wary of being burned again. "Why are you out here, ma'am?" Rosa asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and caution. "My son," I began, the words tasting bitter. "He decided his life would be better without me." Rosa nodded, a gesture that carried the weight of understanding. "Family can cut the deepest, can't they?" she replied, a statement rather than a question. In Rosa, I saw a path not just to survival but to something greater. Here was someone who could understand the sting of betrayal, the coldness of abandonment. And as we talked, a plan began to form, one that went beyond mere survival. Rosa was my first recruit in a war I had declared the moment Michael closed that door on me. The streets that night were unforgiving, but they were also illuminating. I realized that I wasn't just searching for shelter, I was gathering allies, building an army. With each refusal, each door slammed in my face, my resolve hardened. Michael thought he had discarded me, but what he had actually done was set me free. Free to fight back, to claw my way up from the depths to which I had been consigned. So, I made a vow, there in the cold with Rosa by my side. Michael had started this war, but I would be the one to end it. He had given me nothing but the crumpled bills in my pocket and the clothes on my back. But I would use those meager resources to build something powerful, a force capable of striking back. As the night deepened and Rosa and I found shelter in an alley, our shared warmth a small defiance against the cold, I knew one thing for sure: Michael's betrayal would be his undoing. And I, the mother he had discarded, would be the architect of his downfall. In the relentless pursuit of shelter and a sliver of dignity, Rosa and I stumbled upon a beacon of hope in the form of a help-wanted sign dangling in the window of a rundown diner. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was seeking refuge in places that reminded me of the very home my son had expelled me from. Yet, this sign represented something more, an opportunity not just for survival, but for retribution. Approaching the owner, a woman named Elaine who bore the marks of life's unkindness as visibly as I did, I found myself laying bare my desperation in a way I hadn't planned. "I need this job," I confessed, my voice a whisper of the storm raging inside me. "I'll work harder than anyone you've got." Elaine surveyed me with a skepticism born of her own hardships. "Why should I trust you?" she asked, her question a sharp blade poised at my throat. "Because I have nothing left to lose," I answered, letting the truth of my words hang between us, heavy with unspoken promises of loyalty born from necessity. It was in that moment, with Rose's encouraging nod bolstering my resolve, that Elaine decided to take a chance on me. "You start tomorrow," she declared, offering me not just a job, but a battlefield on which to wage my war against Michael's betrayal. Working in the diner wasn't easy. The hours were long, the work grueling, and the pay barely enough to survive. Yet, with each day that passed, I found strength I didn't know I possessed. I wasn't just serving food. I was forging alliances, gathering intel, and, most importantly, earning my keep in a world that had deemed me expendable. Rosa, ever the silent observer, became my confidant, my strategist in this war we were slowly, meticulously planning. "We're doing this not just for us, but for everyone who's been thrown away," she reminded me one evening as we counted our meager earnings. Our conversations, once filled with despair, now brimmed with strategies and plans. We were no longer victims of our circumstances, but architects of our fate. And with each passing day, my resolve to make Michael regret his actions only grew stronger. One evening, as I wiped down tables and planned my next move, a familiar face walked into the diner. My heart stopped, not out of fear, but out of the realization that fate was handing me a weapon on a silver platter. It was one of Michael's old friends, someone who could provide me with the ammunition I needed to strike back. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice steady, my hands betraying none of the turmoil within. "Yeah, just grabbing a coffee," he replied, oblivious to the storm he'd just walked into. We exchanged pleasantries, but with each word, I was extracting information, pieces of a puzzle I was desperate to complete. He mentioned Michael in passing, unaware that he was feeding the vengeance growing within me. As he left, Rosa leaned in, her eyes alight with the fire of our shared purpose. "That's it, isn't it?" "Our way in," she whispered, a grin spreading across her face. I nodded, a plan forming in my mind. This diner, this job, had become more than a means to survive. It was the staging ground for my revenge. Michael thought he had discarded me, rendered me powerless. But as I locked up the diner that night, I knew the truth. I was building an empire from the ashes of my despair, an empire that would soon come crashing down on him. And so, with a glimmer of hope igniting the darkness, Rosa and I prepared for the battle ahead. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice, about taking back what was rightfully ours. And I, the mother scorned, the woman reborn from betrayal, was ready to lead the charge. The diner became our war room, its corners filled with whispered secrets and plans draped in the veil of revenge. Rosa and I, we became more than just allies. We were soldiers in a battle against a world that had discarded us. But as we plotted, I couldn't ignore the nagging guilt that clawed at my insides. Was I becoming the monster I sought to destroy in Michael? "You ever think we're going too far?" I asked Rosa one evening as we counted the day's earnings, a meager sum that somehow felt like a fortune given our circumstances. Rosa paused, her fingers stilling over the worn bills. "Too far," she echoed, her voice a mix of incredulity and resolve. "They pushed us into this corner, not the other way around." Her words were a balm to my troubled conscience. She was right, of course. This wasn't just about survival, it was about justice. And yet, as we dove deeper into our schemes, I found myself questioning the price of our vendetta. Our unlikely alliance had grown into something deeper, a kinship forged in the fires of shared adversity. Rosa, with her fierce loyalty and unyielding spirit, had become the daughter I'd lost in Michael. Together, We were unstoppable, or so I thought until the day an unexpected visitor walked into the diner. He was a man from my past, someone whose path I had crossed during better times. "Evelyn?" he asked, surprise etching his features as he recognized me amidst the grease and grime of my new life. My heart stuttered, fear mingling with the resolve that had become my armor. "Do I know you?" I feigned ignorance, hoping to deflect his curiosity. "We used to be neighbors, remember? How are you here?" His questions were like daggers, each one threatening to unravel the world Rosa and I had built. I forced a smile, one that didn't reach my eyes. "Life takes unexpected turns," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil swirling within me. As he left, Rosa leaned in, her eyes sharp. "Problem?" she asked, always quick to sense a shift in the winds. "Maybe," I admitted, the weight of our endeavors suddenly feeling all too real. "But nothing we can't handle." That evening, as Rosa and I closed up, our conversation took a turn I hadn't anticipated. "We need to be careful," I warned her, the image of my old neighbor haunting my thoughts. "The closer we get, the more dangerous it becomes." Rosa nodded, her determination unwavering. "Then we'll be careful. We've come too far to back down now." Her words were meant to be reassuring, but they only served to deepen the pit in my stomach. With each step we took, the line between justice and vengeance blurred, leaving me to wonder if the end truly justified the means. As I lay awake that night, the diner's neon sign flickering through my window, I couldn't escape the realization that my quest for revenge had taken on a life of its own. Rosa, my unlikely kindred spirit, had become an integral part of this journey, her fate intertwined with my own. Together, we had embarked on a path from which there was no turning back, each step taking us deeper into a web of our own making. And so, as dawn broke over the city, I made a silent vow. No matter the cost, I would see this through. For Rosa, for myself, and for the semblance of justice that still flickered, however faintly, in the darkness of our plight. The road ahead was fraught with danger, but I was no longer the woman who had stood trembling in the cold, abandoned by her son. I was a warrior, and I would fight until the bitter end. The day of reckoning was not something I planned in haste. It unfolded with the meticulous care of a gardener pruning a rose bush, ensuring each cut was precise, deliberate. It's funny, isn't it? How the roles we play shift so drastically when pushed to our limits. I never imagined myself as the avenger, yet here I was, cloaked in determination, ready to confront the son who deemed me a burden too heavy to bear. The confrontation was set in a place Michael never expected, his own sanctuary, where he felt most secure, most invincible. I had learned from Rosa's unwitting friend about a celebration Michael was hosting, a gathering of those who celebrated his success, oblivious to the sacrifices trampled underfoot. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Michael's voice trembled, a mix of shock and fear as I stepped into the light, an unwelcome ghost from his neatly packaged past. "I thought it was time we had a little chat," I replied, my voice steady, a stark contrast to the storm raging within me. Around us, the air was thick with tension, the festive atmosphere curdling into something sour, something anxious. Michael's guests, once lively, now stood as silent witnesses to a family drama they had no script for. "You threw me out, Michael. Cast me aside like I was nothing," I began, the words laced with a venom born of pain and betrayal. "But here I am, standing in front of you, not asking for your pity or your forgiveness, but demanding what is rightfully mine." Michael laughed, a sound hollow and devoid of any true mirth. "Rightfully yours? You think you deserve something after everything you've put me through?" The audacity of his words stoked the flames of my resolve. "I gave you life, sacrificed my dreams, my health, my happiness, so you could stand here today, drowning in your arrogance." Silence fell, a heavy cloak smothering the room as the weight of our shared history bore down on us. It was in this silence that I laid bare the plan I had meticulously woven together, a tapestry of revenge and retribution. "I know about the funds, Michael. The ones you embezzled from your company." His face blanched, a ghostly pallor replacing the confident smirk he had worn moments before. "How?" The word was a whisper, a leaf caught in a tempest. "Did you really think you could hide such sins from me? From us?" I gestured to Rosa, who stepped from the shadows, her presence a silent testament to the alliances I had formed. The guests, once mere spectators, began to murmur among themselves, the air now thick with judgment and suspicion. Michael's world, carefully constructed on lies and deceit, was crumbling around him. "You can't prove anything," he spat, desperation seeping into his voice. "Oh, but we can," I countered, a cold smile playing on my lips. "And we will. But it's not just about the money, Michael. It's about respect, about acknowledging the sacrifices made on your behalf. As I laid out the evidence, the proof of his misdeeds painstakingly gathered over months of surveillance and investigation, I saw the realization dawn in his eyes. He had underestimated me, thought me broken, defeated. Yet here I was, his downfall personified. The night ended not with celebrations, but with Michael's world unraveling at the seams. As guests departed, whispering of scandals and betrayal, I stood amidst the ruins of the son I had once cradled in my arms, the son who had become a stranger. This was not a victory born of joy, but of necessity. The road to this moment had been paved with heartache and loss, yet I walked it with the resolve of a warrior returning from battle, scarred but unbroken. As I left the house that no longer felt like a battleground, I didn't look back. The past, with its pain and betrayal, was a shadow behind me. Ahead lay a future uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it was mine to shape. This reckoning was not the end, but a beginning, a chance to rebuild from the ashes of a life set aflame by the very person I had devoted it to. In the silence that followed the storm, I found not peace, but a resolve to forge a new path, one where the chains of the past no longer held sway. The road forward was neither straight nor predictable, much like the journey that had led me here. With every step, the shadows of the past receded, making way for a light I had almost forgotten existed. Yet, the path of retribution I had chosen was not without its thorns. Rosa, beside me, had become more than an ally. She was a reflection of the resilience that dwelled within us both. Together, we had navigated the underbelly of a world that had tried to discard us, emerging not just unscathed but stronger, fortified by the battles we had won. I never thought we'd get this far, Rosa confessed one evening as we planned our next move. Her voice, laced with a mixture of wonder and determination, echoed my thoughts precisely. Nor did I replied, allowing myself a rare moment of vulnerability. But here we are, standing on the brink of a new beginning. The diner, once a mere means to an end, had become our command center, the nucleus of our burgeoning empire. Elaine, unwittingly, had provided us with a battleground where we not only fought for our survival but also laid the groundwork for our vengeance. Our days were filled with meticulous planning and covert operations, each move bringing us closer to our ultimate goal. Michael, oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon, continued his life, untouched by the havoc he had wreaked. It was during one of these days, amidst the hustle of the diner, that an unexpected visitor walked through the door. My heart ceased its rhythm for a split second as I recognized the face. It was Michael's wife, the unwitting catalyst of my son's betrayal. "Can I help you?" I asked, masking my surprise with the veneer of professionalism I had perfected over the months. "I'm just looking for a quick bite," she replied, unaware of who I was or the significance of her presence. As I served her, my mind raced, analyzing the possibilities this chance encounter presented. Here was the key to Michael's undoing, served to me on a silver platter. My plan, initially focused on financial ruin, now morphed into something far more personal, more devastating. "I hope everything is to your satisfaction," I said, my voice dripping with a sincerity as false as the smile I plastered on my face. "It's perfect, thank you," she responded, oblivious to the storm she was dining in the eye of. After she left, Rosa and I shared a look, a silent agreement that the game had changed. "This could be it," Rosa said, her eyes alight with the thrill of the chase. "It will be," I assured her, my mind already weaving the web that would entangle Michael and his unsuspecting wife. The days that followed were a blur of activity. We gathered information, laying the groundwork for the final act of our plan. With each piece of intel, the picture became clearer and the outcome more certain. Michael had thought he had rid himself of a problem, relegating me to a footnote in his otherwise perfect life. But as I stood at the precipice of our final move, I couldn't help but marvel at the irony. He had underestimated me, the mother he had discarded, and in doing so, had sown the seeds of his own downfall. "So, when do we make our move?" Rosa asked, her voice steady, betraying none of the adrenaline that coursed through both our veins. "Tomorrow," I said, the word tasting like victory on my tongue. "Tomorrow, we end this." And so, we did. The final act of our plan was executed with surgical precision, a masterpiece of vengeance years in the making. As the sun rose on a new day, Michael's world crumbled around him, the foundation eroded by the very hands he had bitten. Standing amidst the ruins of his empire, I finally allowed myself to feel the weight of our journey. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and proving to myself that I was not defined by the scars of betrayal. The journey forward was uncertain, fraught with challenges and the ghosts of the past. But as I looked at Rosa, her eyes reflecting the fire of our shared victories, I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer the woman who had been discarded on that cold night. I was a survivor, a warrior, and, above all, a victor. And with that knowledge, I stepped into the future, the echoes of our triumph a beacon in the darkness, guiding the way.